Alrighty then. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the slightly late start. It's just a lot of stuff going on this morning, and I was trying to get everything done, and I didn't get half of it done. So anyway, um, but we're here. I'm only a couple of minutes late, and yeah, we've got some stuff to do today, and I got to start off by doing this thing that I always do, which is always, arranging my windows and such, because for whatever reason, I always put it off until the very last second. And then yeah, and then you get to sit here and watch me do it. So anyway, I'm going to arrange these windows, just get the, and there we go, there's audio's working. So I just have to arrange my views here so that I can see which one is which and check out the chat windows. So if you are on one of the three different platforms, we'll call them platforms, that I'm actually streaming on, Twitch or Facebook or YouTube, each one of those has a chat in there, and I try to monitor those as best as possible. It's not easy to always follow the chats while I'm working, but I do check them periodically, and that's why I open these windows so that I can keep an eye on them, so that quiet, Jeff. So that if you do have a comment or question or just want to say hey, that I have these windows open. Now I have to rearrange them all, and that way I can kind of keep an eye on things and know who's chatting. And all right, I've got 1, 2, 3 chat windows open. I have audio on the stream because, well, I heard myself. And yeah, I can kind of put this out of the way and work from there. I did not get as far as I wanted to this weekend. It was hot. I'm just going to say it. It was stinking hot this weekend. And just make sure that wasn't a message for me that I need to address, and it was not. It was stinking hot this weekend. And by hot, I mean like it was 90 plus degrees and humid, and that makes it feel like it was about 100 degrees outside. Unfortunately, that kind of translates to heat in my shop as well, because I do not have an air conditioned system in my shop. And while it starts off as being not too bad in here, like right now it's 78 in here. It's a little warm, but it's doable. I can do 78. When it starts to get about 85 to 90 in the shop, I'm done. So aside from the other things I had to do this weekend, I wanted to get the rest of these things sanded and finished. I've got 3 of them done right now. I'm going to do one more this morning where I'm going to sand this and round the edges and do the round over, or the hand sand the handles here to make them smooth, break those edges. After I get this one done, that gives me one of each species of wood that I have. I've got 8 bases, but they're duplicate species of wood. So that will give me a cherry, a white oak, a maple, and a sapelli, or sapele. I can't remember. We actually figured this out the other day, and I already forgot. Anyway, sapele, I believe is what it is. And so we have 4 different species of wood that we can apply 4 different finishes to. And so I want to go ahead and try to get to at least 2, 3, maybe all 4 of those different species of wood and the different finishes I'm going to use on it, because each one gets a different finish. And I think, that'll give you an idea of how I'm going about finishing these different types of wood species. I mean, that'll translate to projects that you do. Depending on the wood species you use, you can select different types of finish. Got a little glue squeeze out right here. I'm just going to try to pop out of here. It's just, sorry, it's bugging me. It's bugging me. I'm being a little ADD right now, and I apologize. But, sometimes when you just see something, you just got to take care of it right then and there. And that way it doesn't haunt you forever. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so different wood finishes for the different species of wood. Depending on what the wood is, I will apply a different finish. And I could apply the same finish to all of them, although some of them would look really weird Like I wouldn't use a dye stain on sapelli. That would, or sapelli, that would look really weird. You wouldn't do that unless you were trying to dye it a certain color. I will use a dye stain on maple because there's a reason for that, and you'll see it. And I used kind of some traditional finishes. Like this gets a traditional stain finish on here, just an oil-based stain. It's a traditional, I think Kona is the color, and it's just a traditional wood stain. And the oak, the white oak, it's I wouldn't call it traditional, but it's a gel stain, so slightly different variation of the wood stain that I'm using on here. The wood stain on here, the oil stain kind of soaks into the wood. Gel stain is more of something that applies on top. So if you've got something that that's either hard to stain because, like, if it's blotchy or something, you might want to try a gel stain. I like the gel stain on the white oak because it does a really nice thing with the medullary rays. Because it's quarter sawn, it has these things called medullary rays which run through. It's not part of the grain, it's actually kind of a separate feature of the wood. So it looks really good with the gel stain. For the sapelli, I'm just going to use a traditional, I think it's, I've got a tongue oil finish. And I'm going to put a tongue oil finish on there. And oil finishes, depending on the wood species, can look really beautiful. Walnut, generally when I use walnut, I just put oil finishes on there because walnut's such a beautiful wood on its own. It's already a rich, dark color that it doesn't need a lot, but you want to kind of get in there and make the grain kind of pop. And oil stains are a great way of doing it. Or not oil stains, but oil finishes are a great way of doing that. So what I'm going to do is finish this box. I'm going to sand it. Sorry, you get to watch me sand right off the bat, which I know is not great. But anyway, you get to see me sand. I don't have a lot to do. I'm going to sand this to 150. I'm going to smooth the edges, round it over, and then I'm just going to hit it with some 220 just to kind of give it a nice finish. Once that's done, it's on to the staining and such. Before we stain, we will clean all of the wood surfaces. I use naphtha for that, which kind of is like lighter fluid, but it's a thinner, and it'll thin enamels and varnishes and things like that, but it works great for wood surfaces because it does not raise the grain. And that's something we definitely look forward to not doing, is raising the grain. What else? Oh, I did also, the reason I didn't get to this stuff this weekend is because I had to change the brakes on my Kia. I've got a Kia Sorento, and I did a brake and rotor job front and back, and I actually snapped off, I don't know if you can see that, but that is the front half of one of the bolts on my wheel hub. So instead of having 5 right now, I have 4. Although the Kia service guy said it's perfectly fine to drive on 4, and we'll get it fixed, as soon as we can. They didn't have an appointment until the 29th, man. They must be really busy. I guess a lot more people are driving their cars now. But anyway, so here's the lug nut from that. I did manage to get all the brakes done. I got the brakes and rotors changed, so that's a good thing. But that just irked me to no end because there's no easy way to change a lug bolt on that vehicle. Some vehicles are easy. There's a slot that you can actually like line it up with the slot behind the bolts, and then you just tap the bolt out or drive it out. This one, not so much. They have to take the hub off, and it's just a mess, which means it's going to cost me money. So sad. It is what it is, though. This being what it is, this is a box that needs a little bit more finishing. I have 4 more in the wings, like I said, that need to have this process done. I was hoping to get to it. I did not, but that's okay. You know what? We can modify our plans here. There's no dyed in the wool reason to do things a certain way here. We can change our plans as need be. I'm going to move this bench out of the way just for a moment. I have to get the hose hooked up to my sander. And I think I'm already plugged in. I'm going to put a 150 on here. These have already been sanded to 220. So I'm going to go to 150. Do I have a fresher 150? Maybe not. Thought I had one that was a little bit more fresh than this. I might grab a new fresh one because these look a little bit long in the tooth. I have a fresh 120. I do not, well, this one's actually not bad. We can use this one. We'll give this one a shot and see if it wants to work here. Get all the, trying to get all the junk off of the, whatchamacallit, the little hook and loop closures there, just so that it's a nice flat flush finish. I do not have this camera on, I don't think. Oh my God, has that been on the whole time? It is on. There we go. So I've got a camera right here set up so you can watch me do this. I'm going to put my ears on and I'm going to turn on the dust collection, and then we're just going to sand this off. I do have some pencil marks all the way on the sides and such here, so we're going to get all the pencil marks cleaned off, get this done. I still have the 1/8 inch roundover tool set up way over here on the, so you can see it over here, right over here on the table. Still set up so we can round this off and then just hit it with some 220, clean up these edges, and then we will get into the finishing. So let me go ahead and get this rolling here. This will not take that long because, like I said, it's already been to 150. We just need to, or 120. We just need to do the 150 and then do a hand sand finish to 220. So let's go. I have changed my mind. I'm actually going to grab a new piece of 150 because I'm not quite getting the result that I want from this one. So this one might be just a little worn down. It should cut a little cleaner on here, and I think I've just worn the grit down on this one. It's fine for hand sanding, but I'll put it on a pad and use that. But I think I need just a little bit more power. Gonna switch, got a brand new pad on here now, so there we go. Let's do this again. All right, let me see here. I think I need to check this one time up here. Let me hit it with the sandpaper up here just really quickly, and then we can move over to rounding these edges off. Okay. I like to just kind of put this in, even though I just sanded this front and back, I like to flip it over onto its location and then just sand it. It kind of makes sure that everything's just really kind of hitting. Right here's still a little, not too bad. All right. Now we're going to take this over to the router table over here. I think I have a router table camera, sort of. Let's see what number 3 looks like. Number 3 is not too bad. Get these paper towels out of the way for you. Put them over there. And we're going to take this over here and just give it a good quick run through of the router bit. It's already set up. I did not change any of the settings, so this should still be set. Just grab a quick piece of wood here just to check. It should still be set up, and it is, for the proper height for doing that round over. And if you were here with me last week, you would remember that what I do is a round over on the complete bottom. I skipped the handholds here because the router bit wouldn't hit. But anyway, I do around the entire perimeter of the bottom, and then I do one around the entire perimeter of the top, and then I do the interior perimeter of where the actual machine would go. And that just gives a really nice effect right along this line right here. And overall, it just adds a really nice feel, and it's not sharp, and there's no sharp edges or anything to catch. So let's go ahead and get that rolling here. I gotta just switch power over to, oh, I tell you what, you know when you've done a lot of squatting down over the weekend when your butt muscles are sore. And I can tell you my butt muscles are sore right now because I did a lot of squatting down in the driveway fixing my my brakes. So yeah, isn't that fun? It's like that old, oh, I haven't, you know, you go and work out after a while and all your muscles are really sore. So it's kind of that feeling. All right, I got a little tippiness here. I gotta make sure that I'm being flat and flush. Little variance here. So if I gotta be careful when I run it through here that I'm trying to keep this edge as flat as possible as I run it along the router there. Okay, let's do this real quick. I'm gonna do the bottom first. Let's do the bottom. Alrighty, I got my nice round over here. Everything is smooth, and it just feels really nice when you do that. The other thing I can do, let me take these ears off. I don't need these. Is I'll just take a piece of, this is 220 right here, and I'm just gonna like, just kind of using my hand, just kind of go around that perimeter really easily like this, and just give it a little bit. I'm going to hit this whole thing with some 220 here in a second, but this just gives it a nice smoothing of that bead. It's really, I mean, it's already smooth, but I just like to hit it one last time with a little hand sanding with my, you know, with my hand in the pad or the paper, and nothing really, I can kind of work those contours really nicely because my hand will conform to that edge a little bit better than a hard pad. And I can just make sure that those edges are really exactly the way I want them to be. But these look really nice and smooth. So I think this one needs a little bit of help right there on a corner. And that's the thing, is that like if it's not sitting 100% flash free, you know, it can't quite get there. You'll sometimes get a little bit of a high end on a corner or something where it's not quite as rounded, but just a couple of seconds with some sandpaper and yeah, does a nice thing. I also like to hit these inside edges just to make sure that they have that nice round, smooth profile. These look really nice. Really nice. And then, like I said, we're going to come back in just a minute with some 220 and just give this whole thing a once over. But for right now, what do I have on here? 120? Yeah, so I'm going to fix these edges on the handles right here because I can't get that round over bit inside there. It's too tall. Like I can't come in this way because that round over, the bearing hits the top here. So I can't get that round over into here. But what I can do is just grab some, I've got some 220 on my mouse sanding pad here, and just break the edge of these handles. They don't have to be as rounded and super smooth as the other section that I just did, like all the perimeter ones, but it's just enough to not feel super sharp on your fingers when you're grabbing the handle. And I guess I grab that 220 and just come in here and give it a little smoothing. And I mentioned this before, but it kind of just adds a nice kind of a hand finished touch to it. You can tell it was hand finished when you're looking at these closely. It's like, it's not, everything doesn't look like, oh, that's just all machine finished and whatever. This gives it a really nice, because it's not quite super uniform. You can see that I've sanded these by hand, and I like that. Just kind of adds a little bit of, I don't know, hand craftsmanship to the work. And I think it kind of shows off. But anyway, I just kind of get in these corners. That's why I like this pad, because it has these rounded edges and I can kind of hit these little corners and then follow up with the 220 again. This, and we are just about done. I'm going to hit this with the vacuum real quick. All right, so that is done. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this back over here. So let me come back here, and I'm going to fire this up. I'm going to go over to my fan though. I need to turn on my my dust fan here. And all I'm doing is pulling air in through a large filter through a box fan, but it works really well. All right, I need some 220 right here. We need to put this on the sanding pad right here. And we are going to do a finish sand on this piece of wood. Now, when I apply my finish to this, like I said, it gets an oil-based stain that cures, and then I finish these with a semi-gloss lacquer. So that semi-gloss lacquer really helps to flatten and smooth out the wood grain. So any tiny imperfections in the grain, they all get kind of leveled out when you are spraying lacquer. So all I want to do with this is get any swirl marks out that were left from the hand sander. That's all I'm doing, is getting these little swirl marks out of here. Not a lot of them, probably. They're really hard to see until you apply some stain, and then they just like pop right up. Let me clean this off. The other thing that I concentrate on are these corners. I used a very large roundover bit on here, but because this is end grain, the better the sanding is on that end grain, the less dark or the more even that staining process is going to be, because I'm closing off the ends of that grain right there. So I spend a little extra time usually on the end grain just to make sure that it gets closed off a little bit better. A lot of times what they'll say is when you're sanding, you should actually go one grit higher on the end grain sections. And I don't know, I don't necessarily do that, but I do spend a little extra time on them right here just to get those cleaned off. And I will kind of keep going to the vacuum there just to ensure that I'm cleaning up any stuff and not leaving any areas behind that need more attention. I can see it a little bit better when it's not covered in sawdust. But that looks pretty good. Let me get this side. And all I'm doing is following the grain so that I'm not going to have additional scratches in here. They should follow along with the grain, with the lines of the grain, and then that will just look fantastic once I put some finish on here. A little work right there. Need a little bit more work right here. And I make sure when I'm doing these corners that I don't just spend too much in one spot, because I don't want to flatten it out. All right, let's do the top here. And then all of this is going to get, like I said, I'm going to run this through some naphtha cleaning. And that should get this all ready for the stain process. What is that right there? Just making sure I don't have any wood burning or anything that's visible. All right. If that sands through. Nope, that's just part of the actual wood grain itself. All right. All right, last little corner here. Then I'll hit the top and the bottom just really quickly. top more carefully than the bottom because it's the bottom. Nobody cares about the bottom. Poor bottom gets no love, but that's all right. Speaking of love, I'm just gonna smooth. Just give this a little bit of love. A little vacuum. You notice I put the little brush on here. It just kind of helps to kick those fibers up out of the grain while you're vacuuming, and keeps it clean. But always running with my grain. All right, let's get this vacuumed, and then I'm going to do the lid, and then we will be ready to start cleaning these things and start doing some staining. Alrighty then. I think that is it for the moment for all of the staining, or the sanding. So what we need to do now is clean these off. Actually, let me clean this section of the table off over here real quick. One more vacuum thing here. And then I'm going to lower the bit down in here and change this down so I have a flat work surface and there's nothing to scratch. Like I would hate to set my my base down here and then have it catch that router bit and scratch it. So I'm going to take this little cover off and put on a flat cover. And that way it'll just protect anything I set down on there. I'm going to put a piece of cardboard down before I start staining. I have a piece that I use for doing my staining operations and stuff. But now I have a nice flat work surface. I can set my bases down here when I need to rest them while I'm doing things. So I'm going to get my chair down here and actually, I've already cleaned this off once, but I'm going to clean it one more time. So once again, what I'm trying to do is eliminate any scratches on the finished surface, just especially because it's now nice and clean, or nice and sanded soft, so we don't want to scratch it back up and have to go back to it. I normally use like a blue paper towel for this, but unfortunately they didn't have any of my Scott blue paper towels. I was very bummed. So I just have to use a regular kind of cheap paper towels here. These are my cheapy paper towels. So once again, this is VM&P Naphtha, N-A-P-H-T-H-A, Naphtha. Cleans grease, waxy oil surfaces, and machine parts. And it does. But it also cleans wood. And it also kind of shows you preliminarily what your wood will look like, so you can see that it gives it that nice finished look. If I was going to be putting a like an oil-based stain on here, you can see I'm getting dirt and stuff off of there. If I was going to do an oil-based stain like a Danish oil or something on here, which I do like a Danish oil on cherry, I don't use it on my bases because people tend to like the dark stain. But for personal projects, I like just putting like a cherry Danish oil on, and yeah, it looks fantastic. And you can get a kind of a preliminary view of what it will look like by just wiping down with naphtha, and it gives you a really good idea of what everything will look like. And you can see I'm pulling a lot of dust and dirt off of here. Hopefully you can see that. You can see a lot of dust and stuff coming off of here. I'm going to turn this over, get a clean side, and I'm just trying to just get all the dust and such off of here. So when we go to stain them, all I'm dealing with is the wood surface and not dust resting on top. So it's not overly complicated to do this. You just kind of clean the surfaces. Don't forget the interiors. Corners are always the hard parts. Ouch, just tore my nail. I hate it when that happens. Hang on. Sorry, I don't mean to do personal grooming, but nothing worse than a torn nail because it will catch on everything. All right, and I'm just going to get these corners. And then this one, once this is clean, we're just going to set it aside and we'll let that naphtha dry off. That's the one reason I like using it is some people use mineral spirits to clean, but mineral spirits just takes too long to flash off. This stuff is much faster, so its half-life, if you want to call it that, is much shorter than mineral spirits. Mineral spirits hangs around a lot longer, takes a lot longer to dry, and since our goal is to kind of get moving on these things, we will get these clean, and then we'll set them aside and move on to the next one. By the time I'm done with the last one, these first ones will be ready to go. So that's the whole plan here. But I mean, this is, you can see how it just really accentuates and highlights the wood grain. Like, isn't that pretty? It's just so pretty. All right, I'm going to set this inside here, and then we'll move on to the next one. And I'm just going to keep cleaning these things. I'm going to throw this on the ground because I don't set them out to, I don't wad them up and put them in the trash because I don't want them to, like, you know, self-combust. This is actually highly flammable stuff because it's kind of like lighter fluid. I mean, I could probably put this in a Zippo and be just fine. Now, one thing I didn't do to this one, I'm going to go ahead and vacuum this before I put the naphtha on here just to kind of make sure that I'm not working too hard with that naphtha. I just want to get the final dust off. We'll get the preliminary stuff with this. All right, now we can move on to cleaning this one out. Let's see if this one looks as cool with the naphtha on. Usually it does. There's a lot of naphtha there. The biggest issue is getting inside the carving on here, just to get all the dust out of there. But you can see how that looks. It's kind of really cool looking. And yeah, just go around the perimeter, clean out all the little crevices and whatnot, clean all the dust off, make it pretty. And don't forget the bottom. Okay, move on to the top. Flip this over, get a little bit more on here. Typically, what you'll do is wherever it soaks in the most, like if you have open grain wood, it tends to soak in a little bit more. So like on this oak, it'll soak in a little bit more. So it just takes a little bit longer to flash off than if you have a very closed grain wood. But like the cherry is pretty much dry now. So you can see it didn't take very long for that to dry out. But just try to get in here and clean as much of this stuff as we can, because that just gives us a nicer looking finish. Okay, there's number 2, and I got to just do the lid for the storage compartment here. A little bit more. Clean this off. Give you an idea of what that looks like. It's kind of cool looking. That's one of those book matched kind of, it's not really book matched, it's just a center aligned. I had 2 different species, or not species, but 2 different pieces of wood. Both of them are the same species. They're both the oak, but I didn't have a piece thick enough for me to book match. But I took 2 and cut them apart, and that looks pretty nice. I like that. All right, moving on. This smaller one, this is a sapele, and we'll just, same thing with this one. And clean this up. Now this one's already been vacuumed out, so I'm not worried about vacuuming it, because I hit this with the vacuum the other day when I finished it. Just trying to get dust. But this stuff is really nice. It has a really good kind of a luminescence to the wood, especially in an oil finish, which is why I like to use the oil finishes on these, like the, I don't know, whatever I'm going to use up there. What is that? The teak oil, or tung oil, I mean. Yeah, so the tung oil looks really nice on these. Kind of accentuates this kind of really crazy golden brown color. But you can see I'm getting a lot of, oh, there you go, I'm getting a lot of junk out of here. Actually, I've got, hang on a second. I just noticed it. Sometimes you don't notice the glue stuff until you're cleaning out with like the varnish or whatever, and then you'll notice some glue in the corners or whatever, and so it's just a good idea to clean that out before you start putting the varnish on, or the whatever. Like that'll be a tung oil varnish. It says tung oil, but it's actually a varnish finish. All right, now come on out. There we go. That's not too bad. It's another little glob right there. Unfortunately, the glue kind of blended in with the color of the wood. It was making it difficult to actually see some of these little pieces of glue until I hit it with the naphtha, and then all of a sudden they just jumped out at me, and I was like, ooh, that's not good. But I think we've got most of it now. You do this one last little section right here, and I'm just right along that lid, or not the lid, but the bottom. And I'm just trying to get any of that out of there, because it will kind of show up when you put finish on, and that's really what you want to avoid is any of that stuff showing up when you're putting the finish on. That looks pretty good right there. Okay, that was another big piece. And we got that out. Sweet. And now I can clean this out like that. Anyway, yeah, sometimes when you put, when you clean things out or when you clean with the naphtha or whatever, it shows you a lot more of what you're actually getting in terms of glue. So now I have to clean this out. And so these are kind of a pain sometimes, getting the carving areas cleaned out. You gotta make sure you get all your tissue out of the indents. But really pretty. You can see that. Let me go over here and see if it looks a little bit better. So this is, that wood is just so pretty, and it just kind of comes alive with some oil on there. It's gonna look actually even better. This is, like I said, this is naphtha. When I put oil on here, it looks even better. So we've got one more that we will clean up, and that is the maple base over here. So this one's done. So let's grab the maple. And this one has a little bit, I meant to get to it too. I need to vacuum this one as well. This one has a little bit of glue that I'm going to try to get out of this side over here. And I'm just taking a flat chisel and just working along the side to try to get underneath that glue and just kind of pry it up out of the way here. Because I think nothing kind of ruins a finish more than having glue kind of popping its head up out of the way. And I mean, it's not big areas. I mean, it's a really thin, I don't know if you can see that, a really thin strip of glue that was in there. But especially on this stuff, being so lightly colored, it can really kind of pop up, and you don't necessarily want that ruining your piece here. Let me see if there's any other big. Okay, I can live with that. I do need to vacuum this one though, so I'm gonna hit this with the vacuum real quick. All right. All right, now we're ready for a little bit more naphtha on this one, and then we will be done cleaning the wood, and then we can move on to actually finishing the wood. Like I said, this isn't necessarily my favorite part of the project, but that being said, it is the part of the project that usually makes your wood come alive and look awesome. So taking your time in this part, I mean, it's not necessarily as fun as building, but it is, and many would argue, and they'd probably not be wrong, that it is probably the most important part of your project is finishing it and making sure that the finish you put on complements all the work you put in to getting it to that point, right? I mean, why do all that work if you're not going to take the time to do a good finish on it? I agree. So that's not too bad. I didn't pull off too much dust and dirt there. Or if I did, it's just so light you can't see it. Get the insides here, try to get in the corners because that's where dust likes to accumulate. It's in those corners, like where the edges all come to meet. And get the top. This one's going to be really interesting. Like I said, we're going to do a different finish with this one than I do on my other bases. It's a finish I usually reserve for figured maple and some other figured woods, which is dye staining them and then sanding off the dye stain. on the, so that the stain only stays in the figured portion, which is kind of like ingrain. So like this figure that you can see on here is really what that is ripples of ingrain and long grain squished together. And so when you put dye stain in there, it soaks into those ingrain areas, but then you sand it off of the surface areas, like the long grain areas, and you're left behind with something that really accentuates the way this looks. With that being said, this one's done. I'm going to set it over here, and I'm trying to figure out what we should do first. I'm thinking probably the easiest one to do first is the tung oil finish. And it's actually a small base. I'm going to move this over here. It's a very small base. And I think, come over here. So this one, let me get my finishing pad out here. It's very dirty. Hang on a second. It's covered in dust, of course. Doesn't really do a lot of good to have a finishing surface that's covered in dust when you spend all that time cleaning the dust off. So we'll do that. Gotta get these, hang on a second. All right, so this is just a piece of cardboard I keep around for doing, well, exactly this. It's just covered in splotches of stain and whatnot. I try to work in very small areas, and it should be pretty simple. What we're going to use on this is this stuff right here, which is a Minwax tung oil finish. It says it restores richness and vitality to wood. Well, we're not restoring necessarily, we're enhancing. I'm going to go find a rag. I've got some different rags in here that I like to use. Get them all cleaned off here. And then I'm going to get a little cup to pour my my finish into. Instead of using trying to pour it on my rag and then onto the surface, I do it this way, into a cup, and then it's easier to dip into the cup. Now, I'm sitting here after I just went through this whole thing, and I'm finding a couple of more glue splotches that are driving me crazy, and I can't live with them. So I'm going to come in here and try to clean these out real quick, because as I said, it will make everything look better. I can get them out. And yeah, like that. All right. Okay, almost there. Almost there. Thank you for your patience. All right. No glue. No glue, please. All little splotches out. There we go. All righty. I'd rather catch them now and just take a couple of extra moments to get them than to get them after the fact. All right, I'm going to give this a little shake up here just to make sure all the stuff is in here. So this is, it's not tung oil, it's tung oil finish. And that means that it has a, it doesn't really tell you on here, but it does actually have a varnish built in. So typically what you're going to do with this stuff is you're going to sand your wood, you're going to get it all clean, you're going to apply stain if you want to. So you can stain underneath this stuff if you want to use a like a wood finish stain. I prefer to just put this directly on this kind of wood. It just looks great. You're going to put it on here. You're going to let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes, then you're going to buff it off. Then you have to wait 24 hours and do another coat. So you do 2 coats, but you have to wait basically an entire day. And this stuff is like, you get all the gummy, gooey stuff off of here. And that's the thing, is that because it has varnish in there, that varnish kind of gums and goos things up. But get rid of that. We're going to just pour some into this cup because, like I said, I like working out of a cup. It's easier than trying to. So I just put a little in there. But it's easier than trying to pour it onto your rags from the can. And then I just start dip and dunk. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, though? Just so I don't get this all over my fingers, I am going to I'll put on one glove anyway. I'll pull a Michael Jackson and just put one glove on for this stuff. Because it's not going to stain me or anything. I'm just trying to keep it off of my fingers for the most part. So I've got my glove. We're just going to get some on the rag here. And I like this rag instead of a paper towel because it soaks it up a little bit better and doesn't fall apart like a paper towel likes to. And then we just rub the magic elixir onto the wood. And we're just getting it to soak into the wood fibers. So you can put it on liberally. That's the thing. You don't need to be shy about it. Just put it on liberally. I said I didn't want to use 2 gloves, but you know, now I think about it, probably should have used 2 gloves. Probably kind of should have. Just so I don't get it all over my fingers. So while my fingers are still clean, I think I'm going to go grab another glove real quick. Really quickly. But you can see how that color, if you look on the inside, the color on the inside, well here, there's this, and then you can see this. So it just adds a really rich enhancement to the color that's already there. It's not making it a different color, it's just enhancing that natural wood color, darkens it up a little bit, makes it richer, makes it a little bit more vibrant. Just makes it look good. But you have to make sure that you get enough on here. So we're just going to keep dipping and dunking and going around the base here, making sure that we've got plenty on here. And then this is the part where it's kind of a pain. You have to really work it into this carving area here so that it gets all down inside of the carved areas, because you want it to soak into those wood fibers, because that really provides the protection. There we go. And see, if I used a paper towel, that would have just totally ripped the paper towel up completely. But because it's not a paper towel, it's a kind of a fiber-based cloth. Not sure where I got these, maybe Home Depot. But we're just going to get this liberally coated here. And yeah, just like this. Through the top here. Go. Got to get in the corner. This is the hardest part, is getting in the corners of these braces, these corner braces right here. You have to get all the way into the corners of them. They will soak in a ton of material because that is all end grain on those corners. So when you put anything on there, it's just going to suck it up like a straw, which is fine. Just know that, you know, you're like, did I put you on there? Yes, you did. It just gets all sucked up really quickly. Okay. Get all the sides here. And I don't know which view is better. Let me see here. I got another view going here. Is this view any better? Yeah, maybe a little. I don't know. Who knows? Hard to say which is the better view. But I'm just dipping and dunking, splashing this stuff on, covering up all that wood there. I mean, it really does make this wood glow almost when you get the oil on there. It has a really pretty luster to it. So that is what I'm after. I'm just gonna see, this is why I'm wearing the gloves, because honestly, nobody wants to put up with that. Now on here, just get all this in the corners. Get this all rubbed into the bottom, the plywood here. Looks good. I have not done the bottom yet, and I think what I'm going to do, hang on just a second, is I've got some pyramids that I'm going to pop up, or yeah, I've got some pyramids and I'm going to set these on for the moment while they dry, at least for my like 5-minute time period, so that when I go back to, I'm just going to set them on the floor. It doesn't really matter. I just need these pyramids so that when I do the bottom, I'm not putting that wet bottom on a surface where it A, can't dry, and B, will get dirty. So I've got some little painter's pyramids down there. All right, let's do the bottom here, and then we can set this aside, and we can move on to our next item, because we have to let this sit for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and buff it off. And we'll just use paper towels to buff it off with. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can use paper towels or a smooth cloth or something like that. But I have tons of paper towels here, and they do a pretty good job, because really what you're trying to do is just get the rest of the material off of the surface. It's kind of weird with this, I don't know what's going on with the plywood. It normally doesn't look that strange, but it's kind of doing a weird soak-in pattern. But anyway, all right. It is the bottom though, so do we care about the bottom? Not that much. Let me just hit this side again here. It's nice. I'm going to hit this side over here again. Get started there. Just make sure we've got enough on here. The nice thing about this is it's an oil finish, but it does have a level of protection on here in the varnish. You can, if you want, you could just totally do a tung oil finish. You wouldn't even have to, I'll pour the rest of that back in there. You wouldn't have to put any top coat on here if you didn't want to. If you go through and you do your couple of layers of varnish, it would not be necessary to top coat, but I do, because I want that extra level of protection. And to me, that comes from like a lacquer finish on top. Now, that being said, because I've got an oil finish on here, I'm laying that oily rag out to dry, by the way. Because I have an oil finish, it does take about a week or so for that to fully cure before you can go and put another another type of top coat on, like a lacquer or a polyurethane or something like that. So you do have to let that oil cure fully, or you should. I won't say you have to, but you should let it cure fully before moving on to a different finish, just to ensure that it's not going to interact with the finish you're putting on there. Some people will go as far as to maybe spray a layer of shellac. After they've let it cure, then they'll spray a layer of shellac, and then they'll do their finish on top of shellac. Shellac is like the miracle finish. It doesn't interact with anything. It kind of just creates this really nice barrier between two different finishes. So, all right, man, I should have worn the light color clothing today. I am dusty dirty. What are we gonna do now? You know, I think what I want to do is I want to move to the this one right here. Is this the one? Yeah. So I want to move to a dye stain. It's a very different animal. Let me grab the dye stain that I'm going to be using. It's over here. Or not dye stain, I'm sorry. Duh. Wow. Gel stain is what I meant to say. These stains over here. Push these out of the way. So I have gel stain for this. I could use, technically, I could use a regular stain for this. I could use a regular wood stain, But I just, for this particular wood species, the white oak, the quarter sawn white oak, this is my go-to right here. Now, to prepare this, I need a couple of things. So let me get those couple of things. One of them is I need a brush, because I just find this stuff is easier. You can do it with a towel, but I find it is just easier if I use a brush. So I use a foam brush, just one of these little foam brushes right here. It's nothing fancy. And the other thing is I need a stir, because you have to stir this stuff up. So I have a stir here that should be clean. It's just a piece of wood. We're just gonna, it's just a little stick of wood right here, right? It's an offcut scrap. And we will stir this up. This stuff is like pudding. I kid you not. The other thing that I'm gonna do is get my, one of my stands over here for putting stuff on. And this was a homemade one. So you can make your own. You don't need to go out and buy like painter's pyramids or whatever. So this is one I made for doing lids. So you can see there's basically 4 screws in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which, when I have finish on the lid, sits on there just like that. And it just keeps it from having to lay flat on a surface before you're ready to have it lay flat on the surface. Actually, let me set this over here. And then the other one is just a larger version. So this is just a piece of melamine, or not melamine, it's MDF, but there are 4 screws. You can see the screws driven through this thing so that as I set it flat on a surface, I can then rest my base on top of it and get airflow underneath to dry those portions as well. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and glove up because this stuff is messy. And I think the biggest thing to know about using this kind of stuff or any kind of stain is to prep your materials before you start. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're gonna be wiping off with paper towels, don't come back after you've already put your stain on and then have to get paper towels. Go ahead and have your paper towels already prepped, right? So that all you have to do is grab them off the pile and start using them. You know, if you need some other materials, have them available and ready to roll, because once you get into this stuff and you get it on your fingers or whatever, just, yeah, it's a mess. All right, let's go ahead and we're gonna pop the top. And I have not used this in a while. I haven't done a maple in a while. The thing about this stuff is that it has the consistency of pudding. I mean, it definitely, I don't know, you can't even see that probably. It just looks like pudding inside there. And it also it has the gel, and it has pigment and things like that. That's why you have to stir it, because you really want to smooth it up, get that pigment mixed in there, and have this stuff really easy to lay down. So you can see, hopefully you can see that, it's just dripping off of here. But yeah, that's the way you want it. You just want to kind of get it stirred up in here, get that pigment mixed back in there, and then putting it on is pretty straightforward. So depending, I kind of have different ways of doing this stuff. I'm going to get this kind of cleaned off here. But you can see that it darkened that up considerably. So that this is a piece of white oak that actually was just used on. But I just wanted to get that cleaned off, because I'll probably save this and come back and use this particular scrap again, because I'll have another oak box to do. So I'm going to set that aside. But one thing you can see, and one reason let me come over here and I'll show you, is if you look at my little stick here now, you'll see that, look at this camera. Okay, you see how there's light areas and dark areas, and see how it soaks into the grain areas, like those stripes right there, and it makes them much darker. So you get a lot of pronounced grain detail when you use this stuff, because it soaks deeper into the pores. Oak is a very open pore wood, and I really like that detail on there. So that's why I like using this. Oh, and you know what I shouldn't do is touch my buttons with my fingers covered in gel stain. It's not good. All right, let's go back to this camera. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit for you because that's a little tight. So that's in, Jeff. There you go. That's out. There we go. All right. But that's why I say this stuff kind of just gets on everything. So you want to really make sure that your work surface is prepped and ready to roll before you have to get moving here. So I'm going to set this off to the side. And I'm going to just start with the hardest part, which is this carving on this one. Make sure all the dust and stuff is eliminated out of there. Sometimes I have a little bit of leftover paper towel. And then just take your brush and then just kind of, this is why I like using a brush, because I can really kind of just stipple it in there, use the edge of that foam to really get in and work it into those carved areas, because there's some fine detailed carving going on in there, and you really want the stain to get into all of the nooks and crannies. So I might need a little bit more here. So I really try to get it deep into all the carving areas. And the nice thing is that it just makes these carvings stand out, because like I said, because they are carved and you can't get sandpaper down in those carved areas, they are much rougher grain. It's much more open. It's not been sanded out. And so they will appear much darker in the finished project because they're soaking up more of the stain. And that makes it look pretty cool, actually. But what you want to do, and this stuff is kind of like time-based, so you want to put it on here and you have to let it sit for a little bit. Not too long. I don't find this to be as bad as like regular stain. So what I'll do is I'll do 2 sides like this. Once I have the carving done, I just do 2 sides. Use long strokes like this after I get it laid down. And ooh, that's a lot. There we go. So just use some long strokes to kind of go with the grain here. And I'm trying to just get full coverage of the area here, just to let that dye stain set and do its thing. I keep saying dye stain. It's not dye stain, it's gel stain. You know, I got stain on the brain. All right, and I'm going to lift this up and do this side right here. And then I might do the other side as well. Just like this. Just get a nice even coat on there. Yeah, let's do the other side just for giggles. So I'll pick it up like this. The nice thing about the bases with the storage compartment is it has this middle section that I can kind of pick up and manipulate it with that middle section of wood there. So I don't quite have to get my fingers all over it. All right. And last section here. Getting a nice even coat. All right. Now I can set that down because I didn't do the underside. There's still one whole long side that has no stain on there. So you can see this part hasn't been stained, and I didn't go underneath. So it should be okay to rest on here for just a moment. And then what comes next is the fun part. This is the part where it's like, ugh, it's all just goop, because this stuff is very goopy. I'm going to see actually if I can find a piece of paper or cardboard or something for this stuff to set on when I'm done using it, because I don't want, let's see, right here, this will work. I don't want to throw this on the floor because it'll stain the floor and such, but they do need to kind of lay out flat. At least I lay them out flat. I don't know, jury's still out, but I lay them out flat, let them dry, and then I'll throw them away. All right, I've just got to pad this up a little bit, kind of fold it, and then we just kind of go straight across the wood and wipe it off. That's all we're doing. We're just wiping that stuff off and fold and wipe. Oh my gosh, I just love this stain on this wood. Looks so good. This is the hard part, is getting all the excess out of the carving now. So I'm just going to go over it like this. Fold this up a little bit. We'll do it again. I mean, there's going to be extra in there. Now this is where using a paper towel actually comes in handy, because it kind of frays up and it starts to tear up, but those little teeny pieces, those frayed ends, get into that carving a little bit nicer. I can just kind of push that out. There we go. All right. But you can see that it makes that carving just pop. And that's what we're after. We want that pop, right? We want this thing to really show up. That's why we spend all that time doing the carving. And then I'm just going to wipe off the excess on the sides here. Flip and turn. But yeah, that's the thing about the gel stain, is you just kind of have to just keep flipping your towel, getting a clean one, and then coming in and wiping. But that looks awesome. I am very happy with the way this looks. Always am with the gel stain. And then I got to go to the other side over here. Now I can hang this off the edge. It makes life a little easier for me. And just get down here and just swipe this up. Now you don't want to let this stuff set too long, because then it starts to get a little tacky. And then it's harder to remove. I'm going to get a towel so I can put my hand on top here. Just like that. But you can see it's getting a little tacky now right here. This is actually one of the first sides I did. I should have probably done this one first, but it's okay. It's all good. Now that it's all clean, it's all smooth. Okay. I think we're good. So let me show you what we've got so far. So we've got this. There we go. So we've got this area right here, which looks really nice, right? Sides, they look great. And then here's the back, so you can get a contrast of what that looked like. So we went from this to this. And let me see if I can get you a better view here. I don't know if you can see the medullary rays on there or not, but really cool medullary rays on there. There's the side, and the other side. So I don't know. I've really just come to enjoy this mahogany gel stain on this white oak. I'm sure there's other colors that would look fantastic as well. Oh, I can set this down now because it's dry. So it's not dry, but it's not wet with stain. So I'm just going to set it on there gently while I do this last side here. But anyway, it's the color combination. Well, not a combination even. It's just the color that I enjoy most on this species of wood. And I've got quite a few of them on my website and stuff, that pictures of previous bases that I've done in the white oak. And it just, to me, it just kind of, I don't know, it's got a little bit of, it's like a cherry, kind of a reddish, you know, it's that mahogany. So it's kind of a reddish brown, which the funny thing is, when you put this wood on, this finish on mahogany, it looks like blech, because, you know, it's already mahogany. Yeah, just gonna get some of this off the bottom there. So the last thing I will probably do on here is the bottom of this. So I'll probably turn it over. I've still got a flat surface that's unfinished. I'll do all the inside, because that's actually much harder to do, because you have to get in all the inside of the bases is the pain. That's where it's really difficult. is getting all that stuff off the inside. Because once you get this stuff on there, ugh, it is just so much fun. All right, we're gonna wipe off here. We're gonna wipe off here. Now, you notice that I didn't really leave it on there for an incredibly long time, but not really necessary with this, I find, with at least with oak. So, okay. Who do I got here? Life and Pain, mahogany. Ah, there we go. See, my friend Life and Pain is back. Nice to see you. Yeah, the mahogany gel stain, just, it's one of my favorites. I haven't used a lot of other gel stains that I found to be any good, but this stuff, man, it does such a nice job. And then once I get this top coated with some lacquer, it's just a beautiful, beautiful finish. But I mean, as far as finishes go, it's pretty simple. I mean, you can see I'm not doing a lot of work here. I'm just wiping it on and wiping it off. So not a lot of extra work required. I'm just going all the way around the perimeter again, just to make sure I got all of it wiped off here. The biggest thing you want to make sure, I found my biggest mistakes are when I've missed, like I maybe have some stain on my finger and I'll touch it somewhere and then I go back later and there's a dark stain and it's almost impossible to get that off after the fact. So I always like to make sure I give some perimeter checks here just to make sure that any of the dark stuff is off of there. All right, and then I got some dust in there. All right, this is the part I don't like about this, is doing the insides, especially these corners and stuff. Oh my God. It's a little bit of that paper towel I use to clean the, used to clean out the etching there, the carving, and it wanted to settle inside there. All right, so now it's just kind of chunk on a whole bunch of this stuff and get it done. It's the other reason why I like to use these foam brushes, is it's really nice for that chiseled edge, gets into corners really well. And that is very helpful when you're doing stuff like this, especially interiors. Getting inside of all of these little edges is just so much easier with that little chiseled brush tip. So I use a lot of foam brushes. Nice thing is they're not really expensive. You can get them at, you know, hobby stores, and I think these came from Walmart and whatever. Pricing is really all over the map on them. Sometimes you'll go and look at them and you're like, what the heck? It's a foam brush. Why is it so expensive? And then sometimes they're super cheap. And I really haven't noticed that much of a difference between the cheap ones and the expensive ones, except for, like, you know, where and when you buy them. But it is what it is. All right, I'm just trying to get this into all of the corners. And it takes me so long to do this, I probably end up having to clean these out before I move to the other section. But you can see I'm just kind of getting in here, doing all of these sides. But it just goes on really nice and easy. It's nice and flat. Like I said, it's just like you're spreading pudding all around. Is really what it's like. Spreading pudding with a brush. By the time I get done with all of these sides, it'll be time to go wipe off, start wiping off from the bottom and work my way to the sides here. Just gotta remember which sides I did first. All right, one more side to go here. So yeah, I just try to get all the areas where I would have to be reaching inside with my hand, and it can be, you know, you don't, once you get it in there, you don't want to have to be reaching in until you're pulling it back out. All right, I think that's good. Looks pretty nice. Make sure I got all the corners done here. We look good. All right, so just like last time, I'm going to set this over here just so I don't accidentally touch it. Just like last time, I'm just using paper towels and just start removing the excess. And it's just, there's a lot there. That's the thing, you can't really put it on thin. It doesn't go on thin, it just goes on. And you just have to kind of work with it. So I'll flip this one over, but it gets all over your hands, and it's a messy process at some time, but not too bad. All right. Does nice things to the plywood though. Plywood looks really nice. Okay. Get another one. I probably need more paper towels here in a minute. I thought I had enough, but gel stain, not nearly enough. And I want to make sure my fingers are clean because I'm going to touch this over here. And actually, I'm going to use a towel because I don't want to get stain in places where I've already wiped it off. So now the easiest thing is to just kind of turn this on end and get the bulk of the stain out of here. And then go back and refine the cleanup. So just get as much of it out as you can. Kind of turn the towel around. And really remove the bulk of the material, and then go back with another towel and do cleanup, as I like to say. And flip the towels, try to get a clean edge. There we go. All right, now I can get a clean one and come back and start doing some refining of my wipe up here, because I didn't do the best job, but now I'm more working with the much lighter coating of it, and it's easier to get it out. And like I said, the hardest part is getting in those corners. So a lot of other stains are much easier to work with in terms of wiping them off, because they just wipe off much easier than the gel stain. Gel stain's a little bit more of a challenge getting it wiped out. I like the results, but it is a little bit more of a challenge getting it wiped out, especially out of all the nooks and crannies. I'm not even done with the nooks and crannies on this thing because I have the storage compartment to do as well. Oh well. You know, it wouldn't be as good if you didn't have to suffer a little bit, right? So get this right in the corners. Get this all wiped down. The other thing about this gel stain, this is why you really want to do a good job of getting any glue out of there, is that it does not stick to glue at all. So if you get a glob of glue in there, it will stand out immensely. If you try to cover it with gel stain, you're hosed. It's not going to hide it. It's just going to stand out even more than you had wanted to before. So it's worth the effort to try to really get all the glue out. I am looking for, I'll use this. I'm just going to take my marking knife here, and I'm going to put it in the corner under the paper towel here. I'm just going to get a water paper towel and get this really in the corner and try to get all of the stain out there. So I'm just kind of pushing a wad of it in with the corner of the knife to try to get all of this out of the corners. It actually works really well. Because like I said, once you get it out of here, if you leave any in, it's there for all time if it dries. So you're not really going to have a lot of choices. All right. One thing is apparent to me, I need a lot more paper towels. So I'm going to stock up here real quick. I know it seems like a lot, but it is what it is. Okay. Now I have to do the small interior compartment. I think this looks pretty good. I don't see anything here that I need to address. And let me just check the sides again. Yeah, see, here's a little teeny spot right here. And most of these are just little spots where I caught it with my glove. So just make sure. Like I said, once it dries, it's just there. All right, now we can go to the little teeny compartment over here. And like I said, this is why I like using a fresh towel like this. I can put my hand and hold it. That towel's not going to mess this up. Whereas my hand might transfer some stuff in there. So, all right, let's get the compartment done. And just getting it worked in the corners. Some people have said, well, you know, why do you even need to bother doing the compartment? And it's like, well, you know, I don't know. Do I really need to? Maybe not, but I kind of think that would be like just leaving it unfinished. Like I even do it on the bottom, just because, I don't know, it's just not complete unless it's all done, at least in my assessment. So, all right, I'm just going to dab all this stuff on here as best I can. This doesn't have to be perfect inside here because this compartment is, well, it's dark and they're not going to be in here a lot. And it also has a lid to cover it up. So we're just going to get the color in there. Once I get the sides done, then I'll come back and do the top, and I'll do that area in there where the lid sits. Because like I said, if I had to do that now and then I'm reaching, it's just too hard. I'm not even going to wait. I'm just going to start pulling out the stain. Doesn't need to really be. Ish. So much stain. You do seem to waste a lot of gel stain. I think I found that to be the case. It seems like you waste a lot, but it's just kind of the way it works. You really need to use a lot to cover the surface. And then the other thing is the less you wipe it off, the more stain you leave on your project. So if you wipe it really gently with the grain, you're going to leave more color on your project. So if you want it to be a little darker, you can. You just have to not wipe it as thoroughly and or wipe it more gently, and you'll leave more stain on the surface, and that will in turn make it darker. All right, that's pretty good there. We get one more here to really get a good wipe inside, and then we can kind of hit the corners. That looks nice. Like I said, it's these tight spaces that just make it kind of a pain. So I'm going to go back to, where is it? There it is on the side here. Let me go back to that. I also have this right here, which is a brush for doing glue, and it has a flat edge. So I could use that flat edge in here as well. And that would work also. It doesn't have to be a knife. Because I'm just trying to get the finish soaked up out of the corners as best as possible here. Flip this over to a clean pad. There's a lot in this corner right here. So try to get that all cleaned out. And then clean in the corners. All right. And then just give it a final, flip this over. All right, all of the interiors are now done. You can see it's all done on the inside. Two things left to do. I need to do the exterior portion of the top and then flip it and do the bottom. And these shouldn't take too long, I say, hopefully. Whew, it's getting warm in here too. What is it? 80 degrees in here. Yeah, gotta love it. Gotta love it. I do have a fan behind me I could turn on, I guess. Provide me a little bit of cooling. It's not a big fan, but It might be helpful, maybe after I get this done. The only thing is I don't want to blow dust and stuff around while I'm finishing. That's kind of counterproductive. So just one of those things. You know, you come to appreciate your air conditioning when you have to work without it. Like I said, I was outside doing my breaks yesterday, so I mean, I'm not afraid of being out in the heat. It's just when you're doing finishing and stuff, it's probably a little easier to do when you're not dripping sweat into your project. That could just be me. That's just my opinion. Yours might be totally different. All right, got the top here. I'm going to do inside the rabbit bit here. Like I said, once again, this is where the chisel bit is really nice, or chisel bit, where the chisel edge of the brush comes in really handy because you can really get inside the groove there of this rabbit cut. I was thinking of a rabbit bit, but I was hoping to get through this without having to reload the stain on here. Got a little bit of area right here. Do I have a little bit of stain left in there? Come on. There we go. Because once again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're just trying to get it inside so that you don't have any unstained or untouched areas. And the other area to do is these tops of the corners here. So I usually just put a little extra stain up on here and then work that in best I can. You don't want them standing out like a big sore thumb underneath your project. The darker they are, actually, the better, I find. So if these stain a little darker because it is just nothing but end grain, that's fine with me, because it tends to add more of a shadow underneath the base of the machine instead of standing out. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and wipe these down. I mean, I'm not going to wait any time. I'm just going to get this done. Nice thing is I can put my hand inside here, put it on top of my towel, hold everything down, and just start a wiping. Just start wiping. And you'll accumulate a lot of material doing that first pass. So a few turns is good. There we go. Once you start getting that done, you want to make sure that you're getting the edges so that you're not leaving any extra stain on the edges, because that will show up as a much unneeded shadow line. All right, get another one. Okay. But yeah, I had a whole line down here, so I need to make sure that I wipe this all off where I went over the edge with my brush, because otherwise it leaves a nice dark line all the way around the top here, and that's not what we're after. Much better. Much better. Same thing with the insides. I'll try to clean these corners out, but they're pretty gunky. But I'm going to try to keep the inside lines cleaned out here where my brush went over the top there. You can see I'm getting a nice heavy line where that brush kind of went over the top of that. Then over to this section, also not easy, quite gunky. And it just oozed down the side here, so make sure I get that cleaned out. All this area is around here. And then one last spot up top here. All right, I've got the bulk of this stuff cleaned out of here. I'm just gonna do some refining now with another clean cloth. Oh, see, there's a run right there I didn't see. It's always a good idea to check your project from a lot of different angles just to make sure that you're not missing anything from where you're standing. I'm going to try to clean out these edges right here. Good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. What time is it? 12:52. My goodness, we are not even going to get to the other ones yet. That is crazy. This takes a lot longer than you would think it is. Has my son even gone to work yet? Yes, he has. I didn't even hear him. He just snuck right out of the house. I didn't even get this one finished yet. And it's almost time to end the stream. Let me get all these little corners cleaned out here. And then, like I said, the last thing we need to do is the bottom of this. So let me get this here and then get my knife and get, this is where the knife gets in those corners and is really a good job of getting excess material out of those corners, because they are very tight corners and it's very difficult to get stain out of them. Last one. All right. Oh, isn't today like Amazon Prime Day? Is anybody buying anything from Prime? I haven't even looked. That used to be like a big deal thing. Now everybody's like got their own anti-Prime specials. I think Walmart had a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of Best Buy, and a whole bunch of places are doing their Prime alternatives. So I think it took a little of the luster off of Prime. Plus, I never actually saw anything kind of cool on Prime. It was always stuff I don't need. But anyway, all right. We've got this all cleaned off. So you can see where here's actually a really cool kind of comparison here. Let me show you. So here is the before and the after. These are both the quarter sawn white oak, and this one's finished in the mahogany gel stain. So there you get a good idea of what that looks like. It's a beautiful finish. I'm going to do the bottom, and then I will set this on my little resting spike holder thing. This thing right here. In fact, I'm going to put that on the floor next to the other one. And then the only thing I need to do on this one after I finish the bottom is I need to do the lid, which doesn't take long, but needs to be done. You don't want to have a box without the lid being stained. This stuff, like I said, I just kind of slather this on and then just really try to smooth it out. This is the largest surface finish that I have to do. So I also have the handles. I have not done inside the handles, so I need to get in there. I save that for the last. I'm not sure why, I just do. When I'm doing these edges, I always do the handles also. This is the way I've always done it. There's no particular reason I could have done the handles when I did the sides. Just this is what I end up doing. So see if I can pick up some more stain off of here. There we go. Get this done. Get into the corner here. The big thing with the corners or with the handles is make sure you get into the sides, and then also they like to drip So make sure you're not dripping down into the actual sides of the base, because, well, that would be not good. You would actually get a darker area, and we don't want that. All right, get this all smoothed out on here, and then we will be done, and we can just wipe this off. It doesn't require a lot of time and waiting for this stain, especially on the bottom. I mean, it's just the bottom. But just like everything else, we want to make sure that we check when we're done that we didn't have any drips or anything that went down the edges and, you know, ended up on the sides where we missed it. I'm going to use this one. So we're just going to wipe up as much of this stuff as we can here. Yuck. Yep, just like mud. Actually, I think I'm going to go a little larger on my pad here. Get a little bit bigger scoop up there. Where's my holdy cloth here? Okay, just that. We can kind of flip this. That actually stained all the way through pretty much, but we'll try to get these edges off here. Get some of the excess off of here. Come back with some more. Yeah, a lot of cleaning up with the gel stain. A lot of cleaning up, you know, after the fact, like refining and cleaning off the extras and stuff. Getting it out of those corners of those handles. Kind of difficult. Try it on this side. Getting that extra stuff out of there. Pretty good with that one, actually. All right. Now I can just, oh my gosh, so much extra stuff in here. God, am I going to need another paper towel? Absolutely. All right. Hopefully the last paper towel I need for this side. I'm going to lift this up with my towel here so that I can make sure that I get all of the edges now that we're just cleaning the edges off. Make sure you get it out of the little nooks and crannies. Make sure you get the over off. See, look at all this right here. I don't know if you can see that, but that's all the overage where it's spread with the brush, and you got to make sure that you get that clean. If I didn't clean that off, it would totally ruin the look of this thing. So we need to make sure that we get all of those, like right here, a nice streak right there. Got to get all of that cleaned off. Do this side up here. A lot of it on the edge. All right, now it's looking better on the edges. A little bit left in the crack right there. All right, let's do the rest of the wipe down here if we can. And then I can set this aside and do the lid. The lid won't take long at all. I'm going to check this again. See, there's a little bit in these corners. All right. Everything else looks good. Make sure that's not stained. Going to give it one more once over here because now's the time while it's still, everything is still just a tiny bit wet, and you can get it wiped off and clean, because after the fact, you're just pretty much hosed. I think I've said that. but it bears repeating. All right. We are good. And that is an awesome looking base. I do say so myself. We'll set that down here to dry. We'll come over here and get the lid. And I'm going to get my little stand right here. I gotta wipe my glasses down. My nose piece is slipping. Ugh. I'm not quite sweating yet, but I'm getting a little moist at 81 degrees in my garage. Getting a little moist. I probably should have worn shorts today. Probably would have been a good idea. All right. Let's get this done. And then we will have to come back and do those. Now, I might finish the other oak and sapele ones, maybe one of the cherry, and then we'll go over the cherry and the last one. The last one I really do on camera for you all, which is the maple, because I really want to go through that process with you all. It's just really cool because you do use the dye stain and in an alcohol base. So I pour the concentrated dye stain in the little cup of alcohol, and then I apply that to the entirety of the base. And then the alcohol flashes off. That's why I use an alcohol instead of water, because the alcohol flashes off faster than water. And then you sand it. Once it's dry, you sand it off, and that leaves behind dye stain in the curl or in the figure, but not on the surface. And then you do it again. Then you use the dye stain again. You hit it once more. And it just depends on how much you want that look to be as to how much you stain and how much you remove. But once that's all done, then I usually hit it with shellac to seal in my dye stain, because I don't want that smearing under, like if you use something else over top of it, it might smear that dye stain underneath, because it is a soluble dye. You might reenact that dye. So I usually spray shellac over top, which is an excellent, kind of like a sanding sealer. In fact, there's some sanding sealers that are actually shellac. Yeah, so I will do that, shellac it, get it sealed. Shellac is super, super nice to use because it basically dries, depending on the temperature, between 5 and 10 minutes it takes to dry shellac. It's super fast drying. And then once the shellac has dried, I usually put a couple of coats on, and then I will just give it a little level sanding. Doesn't need much more than that. Just a little quick block to get any dusts and nits and things off of it, and then shellac it again, give it another little few minutes to dry, and then yeah, once it's done, I let that kind of cure for a while. Like I said, it dries to the touch, but I usually let it set up and dry. And then once that's done, then I can go ahead and top coat it with my lacquer or whatever, but I don't do that for a few days afterwards anyway. That's just my general practice, is lacquer is always a few days after, depending on what it is. Depending on the stain or whatever, I like to let them fully cure before I go putting that last top on. I just get better performance out of my lacquer that way. All right, this is almost done. You can see this doesn't really take a lot of effort to do this part. It's just put it on there. We're just going to wipe it off. And that looks lovely. And I have one more edge here to do. Just up here. And this is all ingrained, so this will soak in really fast. Okay. So as I do a little more wiping on the surface here, that should be setting up nicely on the ends. And then I'll come back and address that. Let me get this side over here. Yeah, so that's the lid. I mean, this isn't the most spectacular of lids I've ever made. I've made some that are much prettier than this, but it's functional. It does its job, and it's obviously, it matches the species. So, and it is a two-piece lid with a seam in the middle, so it does give it some balance and a little bit of I don't know what you want to call it, but a little design feeling there, a little bit, maybe not too bad. Not too bad. All right, that is that. I'm gonna get all the edges here, just make sure they're all clean, no fingerprints. We'll set that down like that. We'll close up our gel stain so we don't get that on over everything. Ugh. All right. And that is that. Take off the gloves. Hold it in one hand, grab the other side, pull it through, and there you go. They're captured. Oh my God, my hands are just dripping with sweat. Whew, that is just not fun. Not fun. All right, well, I didn't get as deep as I thought I would today. That actually took longer than I thought. But, such is life in the wood shop. It's not always going to be super fast. Quality takes time. At least that's what I've heard. So we've got another oak base here that still needs finish sanding. It just needs some 220 sanding on it. And then that one will be done. And I still have to do the 150 sanding on the two large sapele bases and one more large cherry base. So they need the finish sanding and the edge routing. So they're a little bit further from being done than this is. I don't know how I'm going to get to those. I'm trying to. I've only got 2 days of streaming this week. So I will not be here Friday. I've got to go run my son to go pick up a car on Friday. So I will not be here Friday. I do not know how much of this we will get to on Wednesday. If nothing else, on Wednesday, we've got the cherry base and the maple base are ready to roll. They're ready to start staining. So I don't have to do any sanding or anything on these. So these are pretty much ready to go. And we can maybe do these. Ooh, I'm getting it wet though. That's not good. I'm raising the grain on my base by putting my arm and hand on it. Anyway, we've got those ready to stain, and if nothing else, we can get those done. And you can see the process on those two and how it differs from basically the sapele one that we already did. The sapele, hands down, anytime I do like a tung oil finish or a Danish oil, those are my favorite finishes to do because there's just nothing to them. You wipe them on, you wipe them off, and you're done. They just look fantastic. They're not messy. You actually don't even wipe them. You just buff them. Speaking of buffing, I wiped this down pretty good, but let's see if we can give this a buff here really quick. I wiped this down pretty well, but we're going to give it a quick buff here just to make sure that anything left on here is gone. I'm pretty sure it is. Ooh, it's tacky. Oh, see, a little tacky on the edges over here, but that's okay. That's okay. Just gonna wipe them down. And that's the thing, it's so warm in my garage that typically I think your finishing temperatures not in the 80s, usually in the 70s is prime. But this is pretty good. So we'll let that finish curing. And then I'll go wash my hands and life is good. I'm trying not to step on all those oily towels that are all that stuff on the floor that I've been throwing all the towels down there. So, all right. Well, I think, yikes. we will get things wrapped up for the day here. I appreciate you coming by, checking things out. This is how things go in the shop. I mean, I know that this is very different than watching woodworking videos on YouTube. And I have some woodworking videos on my page where I've, you know, done projects, and they're really nicely edited and shortened down to very editable to edible bites, you know, if you will, where they're small bites, they're 10, 15 minutes long, you know, easy to consume. That's not how things actually are in the shop, though. This is how it is. Things take time, and that's, you know, one reason why I do these is to show that, you know, even something as simple, or apparently as simple, as a box is not as simple as, you know, it might look when you're just watching a regular YouTube video. Things take time, and making quality takes even longer. So that's why I do these, and I just don't do videos of them. I could do little short videos. I'm sure they do just fine, but, you know, bottom line is I'd still be here in the shop doing the work. So I figure, you know what, why not bring you along for the ride? And if you want to watch, that's awesome. If you want to just skip around on here and see where I'm at, you can do that too. If you want to watch more of the series, I usually put what I'm doing in the descriptions, and I try to at least have some semblance of what I'm doing in the titles. YouTube is probably the best place to go back and watch the complete catalog. I have an entire playlist of the live streams. So this is episode 43. So I've done 43 of these things, and they're all about 2 to 2.5 hours long. So big chunk of my life in the shop, and that's not even all the time I spend in the shop. That's just the part I share with you guys. But if you want to go back and check it out, I do try to at least work on different segments online so that you can see, you know, most of what it is I'm doing. And like if I'm making 8 bases, I may show you on one, and I'll go finish the other 7 off camera, so you don't have to watch all that. But anyway, if you go to YouTube and check it out, it's Jeff Revell, Revell. Just search Jeff Revell on YouTube. You'll find my channel. There is a playlist dedicated to woodshop live streams. So just click through there. You'll find them all. And yeah, otherwise, I appreciate everyone stopping in. And Life in Pain, thanks again for stopping in. Appreciate you being here. Everybody else who comes in at a later time or whatever, hey, if you would do me a favor, you don't have to, but hit the follow, like, subscribe, whatever is appropriate for the platform you're on. I really appreciate it. Kind of helps me out a little bit. And yeah, I think that's where we will leave it. So today, Monday, we will come back Wednesday. We will do cherry, and we will do maple. If nothing else, I will absolutely do that maple because it's the coolest of the 3 processes, all right? So we will do the maple, and yeah, we'll go from there. But until then, have a great day. Be safe. Be cool. It's warm outside, at least here in the States where I am. Pretty warm. So, all right, I'm out. Have a great day. See you on Wednesday.